compete. So welcome to our last monthly meeting of the year. We had our 12th, actually quite regular on that. Robin and I, we've managed to keep that going. It was a priority for us this year, so I'm glad it did work out. Glad to have you here today. The idea is to have another kind of workshop type of discussion like we had most regularly, where we share ideas and what I thought it would be good to think about next year and what are the hot topics, the trends that you're seeing. So let me start by sharing the slides, and it's glad to have Robin as well. We usually don't coincide due to the time differences, so glad to have you there as well. So I'll do a bit of standard process on the updates, and then Robin, please join me also to share from your side, and then we'll have the breakout rooms to think about the topic that I put here on the table. So we keep growing. We had a good last couple of weeks and overall good year. As we said always from the beginning, we don't want to make this explosion that nobody knows each other. We want to keep the community that knows each other, and we keep growing steadily. Every year you can see the number of strategy implementation professionals, more than 110. Congratulations to the new SAP members. What else do we have here? The playbook, it's going again, quite some people are starting to talk about it. I was in a conference very recently in Las Vegas, and people talked to me about the playbook, that they had read it, and they were really happy about that. So this is a great as well to start creating more and more awareness. I want to ask Robin, any thoughts, not just on the playbook, but from your side? I know you've been quite active too.
Yes, just for everyone looking at the price there, that's the exclusive price for the Institute. The price to non-Institute members is $100 US.
Yeah.
So just a quick one there, just for those. No, thanks, Antonio. It's great to, as you said in your introduction, we manage the time as new members from the Philippines, New Zealand, Australia. So we do alternate so that we can cover, and I'm in Singapore, so I take the different timing. Yeah, I mean, Antonio and I are looking very much, next month is our 3rd birthday. And into our 3rd year, we would very much like it to be, continue our exponential growth. To support that, we would like your feedback. And if, Antonio, we have time today, it would be good to hear from people on the call, not just the subjects, but the value we can continue to add going into next year. We've also going to ask, we would also ask those who have finished and certified as SIPs, if you'd be kind enough, and we'll follow up with this in the month, to give us an endorsement that you're willing to share on social media. So we're looking for, 3 sentences of why you took the course, why you enjoyed it, assuming you did, and how it helped your career. Because we want to continue to grow. On the website, for example, we've now created a corporate page specific because we're targeting in 2023 more B2B to come on board. So we'd appreciate any support and endorsements too. But we're also, as we start our 3rd year from January, Antonio and I are very much looking forward to adding even greater value. Show the community is growing, and we want to make sure as we evolve. So one thing I'll add, Antonio, is that many of you know we've added this year more around sustainability, more around implementation in a digital world, and we'll continue to add and update the course. And all those updates are free to members, whether you've taken the course or not, on the members page.
Thank you, Robin. And indeed, I wanted to take the last part of the the discussion today to get some additional feedback for us and for the Institute. So a good setting it there. And so from the updates that I had is basically on the playbook, you have the members site. I'm just sharing this because every month there's new people joining us so that they can find the information if needed for the members page, and what Robin was saying, where to find the latest on articles that we publish or that we see interesting. The fellowship, of course, there's still quite interesting for some people. We get always inquiring, so you see that there's a section on the fellowship. If anybody is interested, of course, just send Robin or myself a note, and we'll explain a bit further. And I just want to go straight to the discussion here. I was thinking the other day, what are the trends for next year, right? How do we see that? And there was an exchange earlier today between, I think it was Randall, who shared an article from Roger Martin talking about execution. So I thought it could be interesting for all of us to just share our views on what are the big items, the 1, 2, 3 items that we see in strategy, execution, implementation for next year. And then that will lead also to us to think how we can address them properly and be in the forefront, or maybe write an article. Or so I thought it's a nice way to conclude the year thinking into next year, and hopefully we have all a great year. So my proposal is the usual run. Let's have about 15 minutes in breakout rooms. And just, if you don't know each other, introduce yourselves, and then just have a facilitator, and from your own point of view and in the breakout rooms, who are the, what do you come up? Maybe let's take 20 minutes because this is an important topic. So what are the key trends we see around strategy implementation next year? So I'm going to put, I think, how are we? We're 25. I'm going to make 4 groups, and I'll join one, Robin join other, and we'll be back in 20 minutes. So just make note of your top 3 strategy implementation trends or topics for 2023. Let me go to the breakouts. I will post the recording. Welcome back. So let's start with each group sharing their findings, their views about next year, key trends. Let me start with group number 1. We had Alan, Dora, Claudette, Julia, Michelle, Randall. Who wants to talk? If nobody talks, we have an implementation problem here. Huh?
Okay, I'll ask my colleagues to just chime in where they feel I've missed anything. There was mention of growing trends in terms of the public sector, really looking at strategic implementation in ways they haven't done before. Also, there's a growing entrepreneurial trend for people who are getting into the space that was noted. This is an interesting one. There are people who are trying to make the effort to fill the strategic gap. They recognize it's there, and they're experts, but there's a concern about the quality of what they're actually bringing. Digital transformation and automation is a trend, but there was a note also that still doesn't replace face-to-face interaction. And then there is a transformation and execution. That part of strategic implementation seems to be growing, and it's being reflected in management and governance. And then finally, being data-driven. it was noted that that is also trending, and ways to and utilizing ways to forecast.
Very interesting. Data-driven, hot topic, public sector, hot topic too. Thank you. Very, very interesting. Any comments, any thoughts on what Claudette and Group 1 shared? Any additions? No? Okay, let's group number 2. Olga, Casey, Roy, Dimitros, who wants to share? And you can be both sharing the 2 or 3, Adam.
I have been nominated somehow. Don't ask me how we got to that point. But we had a great discussion actually in the group, and it was quite interesting because we are all coming from different backgrounds, yet we saw quite a few similarities in the patterns. Key ones being the fact that we see fast change, complex projects, they become more and more complex all the time. And whilst you would expect that because they're more complex, you need to have more structure, somehow we see that the opposite happens in the context of agility, being agile and just moving on, implementing things quickly. And that led us to a part of the discussion actually was taken by the Chief Performance Officer, an article that you wrote, Antonio, which I'm sorry, I haven't read that myself yet, but Chan referred to it. And that generated quite a bit of discussion in the group that because of all these circumstances, the fast, complex, agile, that creates more and more need of actually having the Chief Performance Officer, but then who plays this role? And this is what actually took most of our conversation as thinking as to who that person may be and how this fits with the structure of the business, and considering that that means effectively you're creating potentially one more layer in already complex hierarchies. So yeah, that's what we said. But if anyone else in my group has, if I missed something, please do shout.
I think this is Rushali here. So Olga, you have almost covered our discussion. One key topic what we identified is how do we become agile and quick in making the decisions as part of approving any specific initiatives or projects in the organization, because we end up setting up so many processes or structures or governance around it, and then we lose time to market when we want to move on faster in implementations.
Thank you, Rushali. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Group 2. Very interesting. I like that reference to this Chief Project Officer. Let me go to group number 3, Daniel, Robin, Wayne, Larry. Curious to hear.
Well, thanks so much. I was nominated by Robin to lead our group. I don't know why. Just a comment with regards to the previous group. I think the concept of a chief performance officer is emerging as to being quite compelling. So I like that, as opposed to a project officer, but a performance officer, because that's what's actually happening in the branding industry, where agencies are being more accountable. And so they have a responsibility to demonstrate the performance of the outcome. And it comes down to the fact that what is the outcome? In our group, we talked about some of the priorities, and we came up with 3 that are centered around the overall value proposition and concept of growth. That's about growth really in the realm of people, making sure that you have the right teams. Are hybrid, they're all over the globe. They have different roles and responsibilities. So improving the experience and the performance of the people. The second one is around digital growth. Digital transformation is the #1 word that's on the minds of everybody, whether you're government, commercial, healthcare, but what does that really mean? So it's about how do you make sure that that digital growth is something that is quantifiable and something that you can demonstrate an outcome. And the third, of course, is sustainability. It's lots of ideas and concepts and approaches. We talked about the fact that, and Robin made reference to about the generation where the father invents something and creates it, the next generation manages it, and the next generation after that loses it. So why is that? And that happens. A lot of these ideas that are coming out are not being sustained because they're not grounded in a basic, what we call unifying philosophy, something that's the DNA that is sustainable and transcends time. And so that's, I think, is how one has to approach the future. And it's really the trend that we see unfolding to augment what you talked about earlier around automation and AI and agile. But the key is if you don't know why you're doing something and not everybody knows why, and you're not all on the same page, it's going to fail.
Great.
Thank you, Wayne.
Anything to add? Interesting. Thank you. And let's go to the last group where we had Chris, Isaac, Joe, Marina. Who's going? I think Joe.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Our teams had a great discussion, and it turned out that we were very geographically dispersed, which was interesting based on some questions we brought up. We had a representative from Russia, from Kenya, from India, and Bahrain, and then myself from the USA. We started out with a general discussion about what they felt were the barriers to strategy implementation. And one of the things that rang out very quickly was it turns out that the stakeholder engagement business is still a problem that has to be dealt with on a continuing basis. And it's one that I think all of us in the consulting business have experienced. They can talk a good game and they can have the right plan, but they just don't invest the time or the resources to get it implemented. Also, Chris introduced, I like, Chris, your little A on agility, because I think that people want agility, the big A, like with a light switch throw, but they realize that they can't get it. So the little A approach, I think, was good on that, and that it was very cultural based as well. I turned around and asked a group a simple question. What would be the one thing, if you could tackle going forward in 2023 to help strategy implementation be realized? And one of the responses was specialized consulting with practical experience. Too many consultants coming in are experts with a lot of academic background, but no creds, so to speak, credibility based on experience about how they did this at other organizations going forward. One of the other team members mentioned that we have to work hard at the teamworks and the core teams that are assigned to strategy implementation going forward. And I look at this as the critical part because implementation is all about people. You can have the best plans, the best systems. They don't produce what you want unless the people are behind the production. And also remote teams, the concept of remote teams came up, and the mindsets that need to be there. And that's a tough hurdle to get over. Because of I think the cultural aspect Chris brought up about you got to be a member of the family and be seen. And unfortunately, even with all the technology like what you're doing here to connect, it's not quite the same when you're in the day-to-day battle of implementation. And last but not least, the stakeholder engagement business, again, as I mentioned earlier, is really a huge issue going forward because they get excited, they acquiesce, and then pretty soon they're gone into a small coma and you don't hear about it anymore from the stakeholders going forward. And there was also the talk about shortage of skills and how they're addressing those things going forward. Team, anything else? Did I leave anything out?
Oh, good job, I think. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Very good, great thoughts, and I think pretty much align as well from the different groups. I have a call with HBR right after this one, and there's two topics they're interested. One is prioritization. So basically it's something that we know. We cover, Robin and I, in the course, and it's something we've been working, but they realize that this is something that we talk, but we don't have the skills. There's nobody teaching senior leaders. So that's one topic that it could be. It's already, I think, an important topic, but maybe it can become even more with all the things that we were talking. So that prioritization, skills, focus, I think could be a topic of high relevance. The other topic which is interesting for them is if operations gets fully automated with robots and AI, what will the people be doing? Normally they're working in partially operations, but how it's part also of how do we motivate it? How do we look at resources? How do we organize them? Which structures do we put in place? So that's kind of the other trend which I just wanted to share, and I don't know if people have any views, but yeah, this just sharing from my own perspective. I don't know, Robin, you want to share a bit also on what you're working?
Yeah, thank you, Antonio. I'll share one trend, and I'll be curious to see if anyone's using the language yet. There's a major trend that I didn't bring up in the group because it's literally just at the cusp of being introduced. And it's a term of shifting from vertical to horizontal management. Is anyone familiar with the term horizontal management? Is anyone using it? When you got it? Yeah, good on you. You're in the minority. Most leaders, MNCs, governments were introduced. Actually, I will post it and add it to the curriculum. I posted an article, published an article this week with Duke Dialogue, co-authored with a professor here in Singapore, explaining it and giving 2 uses. What it is, you know, and Rochelle, you're talking about accelerating agility. This is how it's done. Vertical management is we go to committees, we get sign off, we have to get budgets, we go to meetings, and we just, you know, your whole day is burned out from meeting after meeting, getting permissions, getting approvals, and you're sitting preparing PowerPoints rather than doing value-adding work and then trying to follow up, and you never have enough time. In a horizontal management, you're working in an organization where agility at scale, you have the platform that supports the connection between the departments. Third critical element is you have empowerment. And, you know, if this is an area that interests you, one of the strongest successes to date comes from China, which is the higher group, which those in the US may be familiar, bought General Electric appliances 5 years ago after GE tried to buy the higher group. And they dismantled, they now have 4,000 micro enterprises, all controlling their own P&L and eliminated middle management. So from that component, that's another trend that 2023 is going to be a bit early, but it's certainly accelerating because of efficient and effective way of managing your business. But it is a massive change, and you have to have the data, the platforms, the technology, and the culture in place. And then, Antonio, if you'll allow me, I'll just add one more quick one. I'll put it in the chat box. Antonio and I, you know, we're delighted with the launch of the body of knowledge. Thank you to all those who contributed and helped. It is a living document, and next year we're going to be asking people to volunteer and help us with it. And Brightline, which Antonio helped start when he was at PMI, are kind enough to host us on this Thursday, and I'll be presenting what the playbook is all about and focusing on what implementation. And that's 5 p.m. New York time this Thursday. And for those who'd like to join us, I'll post the link in the chat box.
Great. It's interesting how the circle comes back to us. When I launched Brightline, it was to close the gap between projects and strategy, and now they're connecting with us here. So this is great news. Thank you, Robin. I want to take the last minutes to go back to the breakout room, same one, so that we don't and just come up with one or two areas where you think we could, as the Institute, focus next year or add more value. It would be great for Robin and I to take note and take care of your expectations, if we can, for next year. So I'll put you back 5 minutes, quick, one or two thoughts of what can we take this to the next level next year. So let me just open the breakout, same rooms, and just go into it for 5 minutes. I'm going to pause. Okay, welcome back. Let me start with the group number 4 now, just backwards, with Chris, Joe, Marina, Isaac. One or two areas we can focus or develop.
All right, very good. I'll go through. Macarena on the iPhone had some microphone problems. So Macarena, at the end, you jump in with your idea for the group because you got cut off by the timer. Anyway, we said your topic on horizontal management, Robin, struck a chord with all of us. And I think Chris rightly said, maybe we've heard this before in a different form, but that's yet to be determined. Another part was get people to do more for themselves. So the empowerment aspects in some type of an organization that would work well, and agility in any form, which Marina quickly labeled quick decisions, quick strategy, just quick everything is what I took away from that. And finally, not yet, because Matt's got to come in, capacity building, some work around capacity building and knowledge building. Myself personally, Robin, when you said use cases, I think that's this might be my personal part, but when I see use cases detailed out, I learn the most because I feel those people went through those things and it's real live stuff. Macarena, you got something to contribute? He's on mute again. Okay, that's okay, Antonio, we're done.
Thank you, Joe. Group number 3, Daniel, Larry, Robin, Solawayne. One or two thoughts?
I think we're gonna have Robin speak about this.
So I asked that, is Daniel gone? Yeah, I think he's had to.
Oh,
yeah,
he's
Daniel,
here.
you're there. Come on,
He's here.
Daniel. I'll send you a chat if you got it. Can you share, Daniel?
Sorry, I missed part of the conversation. I prefer Wayne also because Celia Cruz said my English is not very good looking, and Wayne wanted to share what we about periodization, and this was really good.
Okay, so just close out then, because we're short on time. So yeah, so the other thing we came up with, I was curious, why is prioritization resurfaced? And we had a discussion that's never been a priority, so there's now a priority to prioritize. And we all know in implementation how critical it is. Less is more. It's very much what Antonio and I focus on the course. You've got to decide. You can't, if you have too many objectives, you're setting yourself up for failure. And then the closing discussion we had is Wayne brought in the term, the unifying philosophy, unifying philosophy. And I backed it up with, it's not about being uniform, but unified. So it's about how do we unify people with so much going on this. Thanks, Antonio.
Thank you. Group number 2, Dimitros, Casey, Olga, Roy, Rushke. 1 minute.
Okay, Roy, can I hand it over to you? You started this time. I'm nominating you. So.
Oh no.
Okay, so I think where we landed was that our focus was less content and more about what this organization could do and how it might grow and scale. And so this format, these calls, extremely powerful, meaningful. And at the moment, this is a relatively small group, and it is to a large extent, right, self-selected. People have come to your organization, joined, many have taken course, and then some, right, are staying engaged. The question is how, we're throwing it back to you basically. How would you scale? How would you grow? How would you continue to make this engagement process meaningful and high quality? As you gain more success, what might happen is that people that perhaps are less experienced will want to join, and definitely they would benefit from the course. And I think Olga had agreed, this is where perhaps there could also be a mentorship program that will be established, and that will help people who've joined and have less experience, but it could also be an attraction, a way to attract people to join, because they would know that this would be part of the thing. So we focused less about sort of trends and content development and more trying to figure out, like, is there a way to start to create these similar get together rather than a global setting, or in addition to a global setting, to also be regional, so that they could also facilitate people getting together. And maybe content could come from there and flow back to the center. But I don't know if other folks from the group have more to add.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you, group 1, 2, putting the ball back in our camp. And last one, room 1, Alan, Dora, Claudette, Julian, Michelle.
Yeah, so I think it probably represents the diversity of our group, but we managed to somehow interpret the question in multiple ways. So some of the content has been covered. We talked about the benefits of scenario-based planning and using that and focusing on building foresight. So I think that would come under the content. There was something about project-based implementation as well. And then one thing maybe that hasn't been mentioned, similar to the last group 2, was how to, I suppose, grow the institutes and membership. And one of the ways I thought we could do that is to, I suppose, speak to leaders, because there's an assumption sometimes that they understand implementation, and they don't. Not all leaders understand implementation. So it's speaking to them, and it's raising in their awareness that there is a body of knowledge, there is training and skills development through the Institute that they can, procure for their implementation teams. And that then also helps people that are maybe struggling with implementation to be able to get that support and funding from their organizations to be able to come onto a course like that.
Thanks, Dora.
Thank you. Very good. Chris, 1 second. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think one thing just missed is, I think a key thing that is kind of central to a lot of this, particularly sustainability and stuff, but strategy in general, is looking at risk management and integrating that into everything. And I think that's a key factor.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know we're a bit over time, and I appreciate your time. So thank you for the feedback, the good comments. Please join Robin on his speech in 2 days. Robin, any final words?
Yeah, enjoy the holidays. Thank you to everyone for your contribution this year. It's wonderful to see the community continue to grow. On behalf of Antonio and I, thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful, hopefully slower end of the year. and enjoy the holidays and have a wonderful new year. And from my side, I'll see you in January.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Holidays.
Bye.
Bye.